That's great. Okay, so welcome to today. We're going to do session 2 of the 3 green social prescribing sessions that we've been asked to do for the social prescribers and link workers in this area. We've got a presentation that we're going to work through as a group, but there'll be lots of opportunity for discussion and audience participation. And so it really is a case of if you want to stop me to ask a question, please do raise your hand. While I've got the presentation going, I can't see everybody's computer screens, but my colleague Mary will help look out for people. So just do stop me if there's anything that you want to discuss further. And then a couple of people said that they're going to have to either go early or dip in and out of the session. That's absolutely fine. I will be sending around the slides afterwards for you to look at, and then the information is also on the Padlet, and then there'll be the recording so you can catch up with that. So I'm going to share my screen and then we'll get started. We will have a couple of breaks within the session just so you can pause and reflect and have a comfort break as you need. I'm just going to share my, I don't want another Zoom meeting. I can only cope with one at a time. I'm just going to share my presentation. Can people see that okay? If someone could just let me know that
yes,
you can see the screen.
Yes, we can. Yes, I can.
That's great. Okay, so this is session 2, the 2 out of 3, and we're going to look today all about more about a recap about what green social prescribing is in more depth. And we're going to look at about how you can bring elements of nature connection into your role as social prescribers and link workers. And I've already been having a chat with some of you about ways that you're doing this already, and it would be lovely to share those with the rest of the group, because I think it's quite inspiring to hear what other people are doing and to then see how that might be possible in your own work. A quick reminder about getting the most out of the session. So I'm Jenny King, and my colleague Mary O'Connell we both work for Sheffield and Rotherham Wildlife Trust on the Wild at Heart project, which is all about connecting people with the natural world, doing hobby-based seasonal nature activities in local parks. And we do that with the aim of improving people's social connections, helping people feel less lonely and more confident to join in with community sessions. Within these sessions, we've really tried to make it as tailor-made as possible. So they're your sessions for finding out more. You can always ask questions through the presentation, or pop them in the chat if you don't want to say in front of other people, or you can add them to the Padlet and I will include it in the next session for you. There's a few things which we can all do to help the session go smoothly. One of them might be just so we can avoid all the background noise, we can make sure that everybody's on mute unless you're talking, and that really helps keep the sound levels acceptable so people can hear. We often have lots of different experiences, we've got different opinions, and we can definitely listen to others and really listen and be kind and take things with an open mind, so we can have great discussions that way. If there's anything you find that you want to share, you can add it to the Padlet. The link is in the emails I've been sending you, and it's also on the previous slide when you get these slides emailed to you. You can also add in a little bit about who you are and who you work with, and maybe how you're bringing nature connection into your role, and that will really help you as a kind of a disparate team of people doing very similar roles across quite a wide geographical area, but then you can see what other people are doing and discuss and work on things together, and share really good practice and share your successes. And then you can share this information with your colleagues. We have got our final session next week, so they could book on that to just get a general overview about green social prescribing and nature connection and well-being. So it's not too late for them to do that. But you can also share what you find out in these sessions in an informal way, just you know, when you're chatting with your colleagues. So when you get the slides, these are some websites that you can have a look at. So there's the green and blue social prescribing Padlet that I've mentioned before. You've got the Wild at Heart web pages, which have lots of information and resources that we've created over the years, lots of how-to fact sheets and seasonal activity packs that you can download and print off to people or send by email. And they're lots of really easy seasonal no-fail activities that most people can get on with at home to bring a bit of nature connection into their lives without having to join in with a group if they're not quite ready for that. And then you can keep up to date with all the things with Wild at Heart on the Wild at Heart Facebook page there too. So I'm going to come back to you as a group. Do you remember last week we talked about noticing 3 good things in nature? And so noticing nature is a really good way to build your connection with nature. And one way to try and strengthen those connections in your brain to see the positive within a situation is to regularly try and notice 3 good things in nature. And I wondered if anybody had tried this out throughout the week and would like to share with the group. And if you haven't done it over the week, you might want to look out the window and see what you can see, and you could join in that way too. So Glenn's had a look. Michelle, lovely. So we start with Glenn. So if you want to unmute yourself, Glenn, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, so my 3 things were decay, new life, and positivity.
Fantastic. So
the decay is from I've got my own compost bin, and it sounds weird, but I took enjoyment from seeing the rotting vegetable peelings and shredded paperwork. Yeah, shredded paperwork. Yeah. Break down and into a good garden compost, and so that to know that nature in itself from death and decay regenerates, and within that the regeneration was the seeing of the worms in the compost, which to me is a good sign that that compost is really healthy.
Yes.
The worms have broke it down, and then to spread that compost over the garden borders, which generates new life for the plants I've got planted, and seeing the buds coming out of a tree I've got, that I know that nature in itself takes care of us if we just take care. So it was those 3 things that give me positivity.
And that's how wonderful that you've been able to share that with the rest of the group. And you're not alone in noticing a compost heap. In yesterday's group, when I asked about 3 good things, someone also mentioned their compost heap. So I think they're a real source of fascination to be able to have a look in what's happening in your compost.
Yeah, thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Glenn. Michelle, did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I noticed, because I walk every morning, and what I've noticed is over the last week, the mornings are getting lighter earlier, and it's been really nice because instead of sort of starting out walking in the dark, it's kind of like it's morning light coming through, which is really lovely. And by the time I finish my walk, it's really nice. So one of the things was the light and the different colours, and one of the other things was over the parkland that I walk, there was sort of like the mist hanging over the ground, and it were sort of eerie and really atmospheric. It looked absolutely wonderful, and I was gutted because I've not got my phone with me, so I couldn't take a photo because it was just so, what a beautiful sight, and there's nobody around, and it's free, and you can sort of enjoy that anytime. And another thing that I noticed was my primulas from last year that I planted out of I'd put them in tubs, and I emptied the tubs because a lot of the things had gone. There were annuals, so I just I just stuck them in a spare space in a border, and they're out and they look lovely. So there's all the different colours, even though we're only just in February.
Oh, fantastic! They've had a head start.
Red. Yeah, exactly.
And how
really
lovely!
lovely.
They've had a second year of blooming.
Yeah,
really nice.
Which is marvellous. Yeah.
That's lovely. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to share of their 3 good things? Hi, Fiona.
It's fascinating how people perceive things different, isn't it? But my first one really is, given the wind and everything that we've had, I've been happy to notice that we haven't lost many trees in the green spaces I walk in. It's tended to have been not even huge branches,
little
but
twigs,
just deadwood. Yeah, a lot of deadwood, which is nice. Because we will at some point have a nightmare with ash dieback, but yeah, so the more we can hang on to, the better. And I've sort of noticed more than once a day, well, more than just today, but over the last few days I've kept seeing them. A pair of nuthatches that bring me great joy because I just think they're absolutely amazing birds. And quite clearly a pair that are together. And for me, something that I hadn't seen before was 2 tree creepers, and tree creepers are I think
it's so fascinating to watch.
Absolutely
The
fascinating.
way they move around the trees.
Start at the bottom of the tree and work the way around and up. And I was watching one, and all of a sudden another one appeared, and it was almost like a firework went off. And they clearly weren't a pair. Which was also
they were competing for the territory, maybe.
Quite good news, because so there's a few of them about, which is really good to see. And obviously a sign that spring is rising. One way or another. So,
Mary has a lovely story about birds. I don't know if you want to share about your pairs of birds in your garden. Thank you, Fiona.
Yes, well, it's funny you should say that, Fiona, because I just commented to Jenny this morning that I did the big garden bird watch this weekend that's just gone, and I had 5 different species of bird came to the garden. There were sparrow, dunnock, blue tit, blackbird, and what didn't I say? Oh, robin. But there were 2 of each. It was a bit like Noah's Ark. We had 2 of each of those birds, and they were definitely courting couples. And the robins, in fact, weren't fighting. Often when you see robins together, they're doing a sort of territorial combat, but these were evidently in love and looking for somewhere to build a nest. And we've got a big pile of sticks from a bush that fell down in the garden, and one of them disappeared into the bush and came back a few minutes later with a beak full of nesting material. So I said to Jenny, I'm a bit worried that they might be nesting a bit too early. But Jenny reminded me that some birds will make several nests, and then the female will choose which one she prefers. So hopefully he was just starting early.
Lovely, thank you, Mary. Thank you. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to share with the 3 good things? Yep, Roberta, hi, hello. You're still on mute, but it was very crackly. Maybe just try again.
I thought I could do Alt and A, but it obviously doesn't work for me. Yeah, I saw a rainbow this morning.
A rainbow? Oh, yeah. Lovely. And
very, very faint, but a rainbow. Yeah.
Oh, always uplifting, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought that was brilliant. Haven't seen a rainbow for ages as well, you know, even with all the rain and stuff.
And we've often had overcast skies, which
True.
aren't great for rainbows. So lovely
Yeah.
to be able to appreciate that this morning.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that one. Lovely. Before I go back to the presentation, is there anything else that anyone wants to share?
Has Glenn got his hand up still, or is that from the previous time?
I think that's from the previous time. Is that right, Glenn? Oh yeah, he's closed his hand. And then there was in the chat, Joe, yes, you can absolutely share any and all of the material on the website. It's there to be downloaded. And so you can absolutely do that. So you can just enjoy that and explore what's on there and use what's useful. Ah, so sorry, Claire, you're struggling with background music. Okay, maybe you can share through the chat if that's easier. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the presentation and we'll carry on. But thank you and well done for starting that nature connection practice of noticing the 3 good things in nature. And it won't be long till we see the baby ducks. Will it? Where in this, like we have in this picture. So this slide is the same from before. It just gives the dates for the future sessions. So the next session, our final session out of the 3, will be next Wednesday on the 9th of February. And so today we're going to recap about green social prescribing. We're going to recap about nature connection and the 5 pathways to nature connectedness. And then
I can't see the presentation, Jenny. We're supposed to be seeing the presentation again now. Sorry.
Yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. Bear with me 1 moment and I'll share my actual screen. 1 moment. This worked really well before. Let's just try this again. Share screen. I've got a sorry about this, everybody. I don't know why that won't. There we go. Right, can you see that now?
Yep, that's there,
right.
Yes,
okay,
we can
lovely.
see.
So today we're going to be looking at trying to identify some of the barriers which our patients face to accessing the green prescribing opportunities. And then we're going to also look at how you've got a wide variety of different opportunities out there in the community, and some will be more suitable than others for referring patients. And that will be really down to your specific patient needs, and also having realistic expectations about what the people you're referring to the sessions can get out of the sessions, and we're going to have some discussions about that, just so then it will be a positive experience for the patients. And then next week we're going to look about play in adults and the importance of having sort of a connection to nature through your whole life. We're going to look at some more practical examples about bringing nature connection into your own practice. We'll look at collating directories of local provision and identifying what places that you can refer people to, and then we'll have some discussion about taking it further with the future of green social prescribing. But just as a reminder to get us started for today, I want to share with you a video, and it's a video from the Centre for Wildlife Gardening, which is down in London, and it is a project that they had called Potted History. which the video will explain what it's all about, but it was bringing the people in the local community together to do simple growing and tending of the raised beds within the gardens, and they had it as a social group as well. So I'm going to play the video. Just when the video starts, can you just confirm that you can hear it? And apologies if it starts with a YouTube advert, we'll just skip that as soon as possible.
Support in getting in touch.
Yeah, we can hear Jenny.
Brilliant.
Visiting natural places can be hard to achieve for many older people. Travelling on public transport often becomes challenging, and this can result in a shrinking social life and people becoming less confident in getting out and about. There's lots of evidence to show that spending time in nature is good for our mental and physical health, and London Wildlife Trust wants everyone in the city to be able to benefit from this, regardless of their age. Nature offers a place for relaxation and reflection, and it can also help divert people from worries and preoccupations. Evidence has shown that people recover more quickly from illness when they have access to green spaces, and getting exercise in nature is often more enjoyable than going to a gym.
I've missed coming these last 4 weeks because I've been ill, but I just look forward to setting the alarm so that I get up early in the morning, get myself ready, have my breakfast, and then make me way here.
What's really interesting is that the more diverse the places, the more beneficial it can be for people and wildlife. Even in the smallest of natural spaces, there are things of beauty and fascination to be found.
Since I've been here, it's not just the plants, wildlife, butterflies. There was time we sat in the garden here, just with our little books, writing down the names of the butterflies that we see, and what else? Dragonflies. So you don't just learn about gardening, you learn about so many other things that I can't stop talking about it to my friends and family. I think they are fed up with me because I enjoy it so much. But I think the time is too short. Yes. Or 2 days a week. Great.
The project provides lots of opportunities for older people to improve their health and well-being through regular activity sessions in a garden setting that's local to them.
Every week we have different activity. We meet different men and women, and from different nationality, different culture. It was so interesting. I like it, and I hope I will not miss any day to come.
At these sessions, people can get physically active in a sociable way, learning new skills and sharing memories along the way.
We go out, go to the side, we go to the museum, we have a nice time. Yeah. And the most I wish more people can come and join. Yeah. Enjoy. The most thing I enjoy is taking the produce out, produce home. I was so glad when I joined. Yeah. And so I have to thank you for introducing me. I live so close, I didn't realize there's something close to me here. So thanks to you for introducing me.
I just like the group. I like garden, with a passion. So, I enjoy coming around. So I miss it when I don't come.
The great thing about being active outdoors is that it's so rich for the senses. There's the smell of the plants and the earth and the sounds of birds. The feel of the sun and wind on your skin is a treat for people who often spend a lot of time indoors. And of course, there's also the benefits of vitamin D from the sun. London Wildlife Trust is dedicated to protecting London's wildlife and wild spaces and improving the lives of all its inhabitants. The Potted History Project provides valuable opportunities for older people to connect with nature and to benefit from sharing their wealth of experience.
For me, I hope I will be every day here. But thank you for that. Yeah, thanks very much for your help and for your kindness.
Right, lovely. So that's a lovely video that you can watch again. I've put a link to it on the Padlet, and it's also obviously on the link in this presentation. And it just shows the importance of having a really local opportunities that people can attend. So last week we talked about what nature connection is and how developing a personal connection to nature can be really important in helping us boost our mood, bring meaning into our lives, and overall help with improving our well-being. And that connection with nature will be different for every single person. And then in green social prescribing, we tend to use so the connection to nature, and also in that social, bringing in that sociability to the sessions. So they work together to grow positive well-being for the participants. We also covered about what green social prescribing is. And the other day it was the National Venn Diagram Appreciation Day. So I thought we'd find a Venn diagram to explain green social prescribing. So if you have a look at this diagram, and if you imagine it represents a great social green social prescribing opportunity. So first of all, very important, you need some natural surroundings, and that might be a park, it might be woodland, it might be an in-between space, common grounds, anywhere where you can meet together with other people. And then the people are your social context. So you are meeting others. So you're not just experiencing nature on your own in isolation. You've got other people with you. And it absolutely helps if that's in a friendly, warm and supportive social setting. And then with the people all together, everybody is participating in some sort of meaningful activity. And that might be gardening, it might be growing food, it might be caring for animals, it might be doing some nature-based crafts or hobbies or exercise outside, it might be a whole range of things. And that's where finding what's meaningful to each person is really important. And then where all those circles intersect is a really good example of green social prescribing. So then you have your nature, so your natural surroundings, you have your people, so you have a group of people that the person you're referring can be part of, and they can be engaging in really meaningful activities, so they can get fulfillment from that. And so you'd be able to imagine what makes up a really good green prescribing opportunity. And we also looked at what nature connection is. And so we discovered that it's about experiences and relationships rather than academic knowledge and learning. That can come later once a person has started to develop their connection to nature. Learning and knowledge might certainly come into play, but you don't need that to find a connection to nature. And we looked at the 5 pathways of nature connection, which was highlighted by the research team at Derby University, and they have identified 5 different pathways, which you can use a bit like a framework to try and strengthen your connection to nature. So maybe that's using your senses while you're outside. So all the senses that you have available to you. It might be earlier we were talking about the high winds at the moment, so it might be hearing the wind whistle through the trees. It might be looking at a good view, or looking up close and turning the compost heap over and seeing all of the soil life in there. It might be the emotions that nature brings you, and meaning. And then you can always look for the beauty, and even things like Glenn's compost heap. For some people, that will be absolutely beautiful to see the great soil that's being created from all that activity. And then by tuning into those 4 concepts, you will hopefully feel more connected to nature and more part of the natural world, which means that you can extend your compassion to the natural world much more easily, because you feel attached to it and connected to it. And that might be something like you might decide to join in with a litter pick, or you might think about ethical reasons when you're making purchases. It might be feeding the birds, or swapping to a more of a wildlife gardening approach. Lots and lots of different things that you can do to show your compassion for the natural world. And we talked about how well-being is, when you're feeling good and functioning well, that's seen as a high sense of a person has a high sense of well-being if they're feeling good and functioning well. And the natural world really is the foundation of health and well-being in all of us. We are human social animals at the end of the day, so we need people around us, but we also need to have wildlife rich places where we can explore to benefit both our physical bodies when we're moving more, but also our mental health. And research has shown that that people need a connection to nature all through their lives, and you can work on that if somebody hasn't got a particularly strong connection with nature, by doing nature-based activities and using those 5 pathways to nature connection to strengthen that. And of course there would be other things other than those 5 things, but that's 5 good places to start. And research has shown that people who connect with nature every day are more active and mentally resilient. They're feeling less lonely, and they have all-round better health. A few people have talked in these sessions about how they start the day with a daily walk, either in the woods or around the block, to see what's going on. And that can be a really simple way to connect with nature, by just getting outside and pausing to have a look at what's going on in your local patch. And it's not just about, as we said before, about standing in nature and expecting all the well-being gains to come flooding in. We need to find a reason to be in nature, so active engagement in these natural places, and that's where the well-being really happens, when we pay attention and we feel something for the natural world. And we don't have to, it doesn't have to be exotic, far away nature. It's the everyday nature that we notice that really helps us develop our personal connection. So Fiona, you were talking about the trees nearby to you. So those trees that you see every day, they're the ones which you're going to be paying attention to and noticing, and seeing the buds on the trees forming their leaves, and noticing, when the branches need to come down. So absolutely, it's amazing to see the exotic, far away things, but it's the nature on our doorsteps which we really pay attention to. But unfortunately, access to high quality natural spaces and nature is really unequal, and that's that inequity which can lead to some of those health inequalities, because if you can't access the good quality natural spaces, you're not able to receive those benefits of enjoying the natural world, feeling that connection to nature, and those positive attributes that can be gained from spending time in nature with other people. And this is where green social prescribing opportunities have really a real great impact on people who perhaps are feeling lonely. They might be living with physical conditions, or they might be socially inactive, or living with sort of more complex mental health issues. So they wouldn't naturally join in with these community sessions without the extra support and encouragement from their social prescribing or link worker teams. And this takes us on to, lots of you will have seen this personalised care model, and I just thought we could apply it to the concept of accessing nature for well-being. So if we take the bottom tier of people, which is by far the biggest tier in the of the population, so these people are really quite self-sufficient. They can access maybe the local green spaces, they can travel further afield, and they can plan their own trips. and they're very capable of organising their own social life, inviting a friend. What they need is the information about what's available locally, and they can then organise that themselves. So they need very little support from green social prescribing teams. They probably wouldn't be referred in the first place. And then the middle section of the pyramid, where these people may well find themselves being referred to the social prescribing teams, and they might be living with long-term physical and mental health conditions, and then as part of their recovery they may well have a social prescribing placement, and part of that conversation could be finding out about if they're interested in the natural world, what in particular do they like doing, have they got any hobbies which might connect them to the natural world. And they may well need just that support and encouragement to be able to join in with a community session, a bit, maybe a walking for health group or a local litter picking session, things which are publicly available, which people can join in with as and when they would like to, and build their social network that way. And then we have the top of the triangle, which is the smallest amount of people, but they may be people who are living with much more complex needs, and they wouldn't be able to, if given the support and encouragement, just join in with a session unaided. They might need a befriender to be organised, or a carer, or they might even need sort of one-to-one support to be able to engage in the natural world. And so this might be more where you're referring to more specialist groups and sessions, so that you can ensure that they have a really good high quality experience in nature, and the organisation who is receiving the referral and the person who is going to attend, they're able to cope with those needs, and so everybody is either working safely or having a positive experience. And we'll talk more about this shortly. So we've said before that so a person's nature level of nature connection can be really linked to their well-being, and we've discovered that the everyday experiences are what matter for well-being, and these benefits come about through, well, one way that they can come about is simply by noticing the small things in nature, as well as being in the wider green spaces. And it's not just once. You don't just go into nature once, notice 3 good things, and then absolutely you're fine. What it needs is many repeated experiences, so you can build up a wealth of positive experiences in nature, so you can anticipate the seasons, you can meet people outside, you can and over time your sense of self will be more integrated with the natural world. But you also need high quality natural spaces. So this is where, because there's more to notice, our brains are more stimulated and less drawn to those negative things like the dog mess, the antisocial behaviour, it might be the graffiti. But this is where noticing your 3 good things can really help, because you're not saying those negative things don't exist, but you're just switching your attention to, can you see some positivity in this space? And doing that repeatedly can really help train our brains to not dismiss the negative stuff, but just to really focus in on what's good in this situation. And you can just see how you, as a social prescribing team or link workers, really have a great, you can have a great influence on a person if you're able to encourage them to join in with a green social prescribing opportunity, because it can really have a positive impact on their life, and that will obviously make the outcomes for that person much better, and you can then, you could then invite other people to those sessions too, to spread to spread the positive outcomes. So what I thought we could do is I'm going to come back to you as a group now, and I'm going to help you split into 2 breakout rooms, and it will just be random who's in which group. And I'd like you to spend 5 minutes all working together and discussing what barriers get in the way of your patients when you submit. You might work with them and you might suggest local green prescribing opportunities. What barriers do they say, well, I can't do this because it's not possible? And it would be really interesting to see if there's any commonality between the things your patients are telling you, or it might be different in different areas. And so what we can do is split into our breakout rooms and then come back together, and we can have a more of a group discussion. But I think it'd be quite helpful to have some small group discussion first. So I'm just going to pop you into some breakout rooms, and then in about 5 minutes time, I'll call you back in, and then we can have a group discussion. So I'm going to split you into 2 groups.
Want me to finish what I was saying?
Please.
Absolutely, Claire.
I think a joined up way of working, so anyone that's on the social prescribing or able to be prescribed to for green prescribing is really networking together properly to overcome those, because there are services that offer transport schemes, there are services that offer befriending and buddying schemes, there are services that do this and the other. They might not be under this umbrella of green social prescribing, but if we're networking properly in our areas, you know, those barriers or perceived barriers could be very easily resolved by working together better.
Yeah. Yes.
Lovely. And then Fiona, were you going to say something then? You looked like you were about to speak.
No, I'm just I've sort of said in the breakout room that we're not in a position to do social prescribing yet, and as much as anything from these sessions, I'm trying to get a big enough understanding of it to try and explain to council members why our site's so important. We do have adult mental health teams wanting to come down, with the local doctors wants to come down, but somehow it's falling on deaf ears. And it's interesting seeing some of the issues here that we know we have got and some that we haven't, with Sheffield specific, not just to do with social prescribing. There's an often thing of get to your green space, visit Derbyshire, and Sheffield has got an awful lot of green space that isn't championed enough, which is again part and parcel of our problem. You know, that where we are, Burley Spa, you're on the 120 bus route. It is literally one of the most reliable buses in Sheffield. It goes from one end of the city to the other, but the bus stop is literally at the top of the drive. Yes, it's not brilliant for somebody who's got complex mobility issues because it is quite steep, but you walk down there and you are in another world. And for somebody who can't access Derbyshire, I don't drive, it's not an easy thing for me to go to Derbyshire. And I'm sure Burley Spa is not entirely unique in being these sort of hidden green spots that we really should be championing a bit more for the benefit of people who live in the local area who don't even realise that they're there.
That's fantastic, and that's so important about what's, you know, knowing what's on your doorstep, because that's where we can access much more easily than, you know, several buses and a walk away. So that's great. Thank you, Fiona. Yvonne, you've got your hands up.
Yvonne.
Hi, yes, sorry.
Hello there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to everything about, you know, the importance of green space. I just thought I would flag up, and I can share the link, but Sheffield City Council at the moment are doing a consultation on what's called the sport and leisure strategy, but it's linked to council parks. And I think it's really important that we all, and sorry, I am just a resident of Sheffield, but I think it's really important that we do fight for these spaces. And this may be a way of saying that these are important for a variety of reasons. And it's about the local space as opposed to getting out into the peaks or something like that. So I will share the link because the consultation ends on the 6th of February. But I think the more people can put, from a variety of backgrounds, who totally, get that this is a really, really important thing. I think that might be just a very small thing to do to help.
Fantastic. You could put that in the chat if you liked everyone to see it, and then when we finish, you can get on and add your views after we finish today. So thank you, John. So what were your groups talking about? Does anybody want to add anything about the barriers that your patients might tell you about?
Jo's got her hand up.
Oh, lovely. Thanks.
I was just thinking sometimes when we're accessing green spaces, like the lack of toilet facilities and things is often a big barrier.
Yeah, people have to know, know that they're going to feel comfortable within that morning. And not many of us, especially as we get older or different health conditions, knowing where the nearest toilet is crucial. So with Wild at Heart, we always, when we're looking for a venue, yes, we need high quality green space, but we also need access to toilets, access to benches. Is there a cafe? Is there some shelter? Because all of those things help people have a much more satisfying time at the session. And if we can communicate those things to the patient before they even attend the session, it can really help to help that person feel a bit more confident to attend if they know they're going to be comfortable within it.
Yes, and also, Jenny, our group, there was quite an emphasis on transport, as we've already mentioned, on getting there and how people could get there, and how we need provision in our local areas, and that some of the things that are suggested in social prescribing are quite spread out. But another couple of things were that we definitely don't want to set people up to fail, and so it needs to be a realistic provision that we refer people to. That was another thing, and but also that sometimes the barriers are perceived barriers; they're not actual barriers, and with some help, some enabling, people may be able to access the services or provision.
Fantastic, thank you, Mary. Does anybody else from maybe the other group have anything they want to share?
Physical access was mentioned in terms of disabled people depending on their disability. I wasn't the one that mentioned that, but I run a small group where we can do some nature activities, and there's at least one wheelchair user, there's people using scooters, there's someone registered blind. So it's quite a mix, but generally speaking, everyone has a physical disability there, and that will be likely to be a barrier.
And absolutely, that will limit where that person can get to within your session. Anybody, has anyone else got anything they'd like to share?
Safety was mentioned in our group.
Safety. So a personal safety. So going in nature on your own.
I think it was antisocial behaviour was mentioned.
Okay.
But so, I mean, I've done some walking on my own since the first lockdown, and the recent murder in Ireland on the canal path, and I know the area where it happened, and that's sort of hit home with me of how safe is it out on, out in just past,
personal safety is
in the middle of nowhere on my own.
And I think that can only be, even if the the actual probability anything would happen would be incredibly small. I think if that feeds a person anxiety, then it really you know, can stop people wanting to go outside, even that perceived fear of the danger. Hopefully within the type of opportunities that you might be referring people to, they would be, you know, safe activities, well organized and well supported. And so it's about that journey planning to help that person feel that they know the route, they know the confident, they've put things in place if they need to help them feel more supported to attend. But absolutely, personal safety is, you know, it's key for all of us.
If anyone came across that place in Ireland, it's the last place you would imagine anything like that happening. Because I do know, I have walked the canal paths nearby on my, just with the little dog, and totally thought I was safe. And I did that before I did any walking on my own here. So it does, you know, make you a bit wary, can make you a bit wary, quite rightly, I think.
Yeah, absolutely quite rightly. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to add before I return to the presentation? We're going to come back for another discussion as well. So if you think of something you haven't said and you want to do that, you can definitely talk about that later. So just going to share my screen. Okay, so we've talked about a few of these the things. So about the accessibility, the suitability. Is the person going to be able to afford to attend if there's a cost associated with it? And they're often when we're at, definitely from our experience at Wild at Heart, we're not there to try and sort of solve any problems for that person, but we are providing that safe, enjoyable space where people can develop that new relationship with nature, meet other people, and expand their social network. So it's not about problem solving, it's about having that positive experience within nature and meeting other people. So that's where we work from. Other organisations, and we will talk about this in the third session, about a more therapeutic approach, which isn't the same as green social prescribing. It would be something quite different, where you might be working one-to-one or in very small groups, working on specific mental health conditions. And so we can talk about that in a future session. And as you've said about needing safe and a whole wide variety of complementary, different community-based opportunities needs to be identified and encouraged, because there obviously isn't capacity for everybody to go to one walking group or one care farm. We need to have lots and lots of different opportunities where people can join in with and follow their own interests. And also we're going to be talking about how a low risk of side effects, and by that I mean sort of making sure that the opportunity that you're referring people to, how the staff and volunteers there have the skills and the competency to work with the patients that you are recommending to attend, both to keep the patient safe and having a positive, well-run experience, and then also to keep the workers safe, that they're working within their own competency with clear boundaries. Just move the next slide on. So we touched on quite a few of these topics, and there's many more. I think we've said before that this could be a whole book put together about trying to overcome some of the barriers that stop people joining in with community activities. But I think a couple of these are things to highlight that we haven't perhaps mentioned before, and one might be that it you know, we have we've said that nature really is the backbone of our well-being and us as as a society. But obviously it's not a cure-all. There's not enough research being done about how people with more complex trauma experience nature, and that can be, you know, very difficult for some people, and that's where referring the person to the right sort of opportunity is so important. So we're not saying go out in nature and it will cure your depression or long-term health condition, but you might be over time helping that person to feel more resilient, to feel more positive, to meet other people, which will help that person cope better with whatever is going on for them. And we also, as we've talked about before, need lots of different local opportunities, so people don't have to travel on 2 or 3 buses to get there, that they can pop in whenever they want. And that's where, if it's an open-ended session, that yes, they get some sessions through their green social prescribing placement, if you like, but the fact if they can carry on in some format after that placement has ended, that makes for a much more satisfying experience, because quite often we used to get told, yes, this is great for 6 weeks or 12 weeks, but actually what happens next, it's a real shame if people can't carry on, if it suits them, even if they move into more of a volunteer role within that that opportunity. And different opportunities will have different amounts of capacity for people to join and stay. But yes, there's lots here to talk about, and we can always come back to it in the next session if you would like. But now I'd like to offer you a micro break, maybe 5 minutes or so. Could you, if you would like to, spend 5 minutes looking outside the window, or even go outside, spend some time reflecting on the 5 pathways to nature connectedness. And I'll leave this slide up here for you. But what you can do, if you want to come back, I just need to see my clock. If you want to come back just after maybe 2:40, so that's 5 minutes on my computer, and we'll come back together as a group, and we might and we'll carry on. But I just feel like you've listened to me for a long time, and it would be nice if you had a little break in nature just to fragment the session. So if we'll leave this link open and just come back at 2:40.
Okay, thanks, Jenny.
That's okay. So, well, I hope people feel a little bit refreshed and ready for some more. We're going to cover one more topic, and then we'll have a longer break, a 10-minute break. And then for the final part of the session, we'll be focusing on you guys and how you can bring some more nature connection or nature connectedness into your role. And so there'll be a bit more of a practical element to the session. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to look at, oh, it doesn't like this. There we go. So we're going to look at having realistic expectations of all the different green social prescribing opportunities that you might refer people to, because I think that's so important. Somebody earlier said about trying not to set people up to fail, to make it as a positive and experience as possible, and we can do that in several ways, or we can at least try and ensure it happens by a lot of preparation and finding out about what's available locally. So all of your patients and us as a group of practitioners across the geographical area, we all have a whole variety of different human needs, and one service or one opportunity won't solve all of your all of your issues or needs or things that you need to find out about. And nobody likes to be said, do this, it's good for you. They like to discover that for themselves. And as we've talked about before, we need to really start about where are they at in their nature connection. What's, you know, it's a bit more than saying, oh, do you like the park? You need to know what's important to them, what matters to them, and really try and start there. So they might be into fishing, they might be into cooking, there could be, you know, all of their different hobbies, even if they're not currently undertaking them at the moment. It might just elicit a spark for that person to show a bit of interest.
Yeah.
And then we need to, I think somebody might have not be on mute on their computer. If you could just check that. We're just getting a bit of feedback of sound. And so we need to balance, you know, what that person's interested in with what's a practical place where they can get to. And ideally, for most people, that's going to be something in their sort of neighborhood, in their really local, not more than probably one bus away if they have to get public transport, because the more the increase of distance from that person, or the hurdles that person has to overcome to be able to join in, the more of them, the less likely they're going to be able to, you know, if they are feeling low in the morning, to be able to get out of bed and to be able to go to the session. But if it is just round the corner, they might well do that, or it's a slightly easier ask if it's a nearby opportunity. And a bit like our Venn diagram before, there might be some green prescribing opportunities that intersect what the person is interested in and locally, so they can access it easily. And that's about where you as practitioners need to know, you know, what is going on in their local community, what is available, what opportunities have space to take new referrals or patients in. And I just wanted to share a case study or an experience of a participant that we have been, who is part of the Wild at Heart group in Rotherham. And it just shows just how long it might take from the referral made from the social prescriber to the green social prescribing opportunity for that person to feel confident to move on to something else. So Adelaide was a patient, or is a patient, that had been referred to Wild at Heart from Rotherham social prescribing team. So she'd been experiencing lots of complex health issues, diagnosis of cancer, of different brain injuries, and it had meant that she couldn't work anymore. So she had been working as a nurse in a hospital, driving, probably living a very sort of similar life. She was in the middle of her career, but she had experienced these various illnesses which had caused her to not be able to work anymore, and her health future was really uncertain. So she came to the sessions, and she was feeling low in confidence. She often felt unable to speak because she felt the more she was going to speak, the more likely she was going to be it would bring on one of her fits. But she stuck with the session, so she joined in on the periphery for maybe a few weeks or months as she built trust with the group and began to enjoy the activities. And over time, she really has built confidence. She shared her skills. She's made friends, and now she's able to support others. There's one or two people that she offers to walk into town after the session. And it's amazing to see that she has really grown in confidence. But this has taken about 4 years. So she's begun to share her skills, like making the vocab for our puzzles within our Wild at Heart activity packs, or she's brought things in pictures and National Trust magazines that she thinks other people in the group might like to see. And when she first started the sessions, that would have been completely out of her comfort zone, that not something that she would feel that was available to her. But over time, and this is where having the initial referral from the social prescribing team has been really helpful for her. And what has also been helpful is that she's been able to stay on and be within the group way longer than her 12-week placement. And that's where if we're able to create opportunities that are based in the community, that are funded from multiple funding provision, that you can build in that capacity within the all the different green opportunities, so that people can, if it suits them, stay longer. And that process of confidence building often takes longer than the 12 weeks, which might be available to them in some examples. And if you want to check out some of her puzzles and pictures, over lockdown, Adelaide was really enjoyed making some online jigsaw puzzles. So they are they're photos which she's taken and that we've helped her upload onto this website, which turns it into a jigsaw puzzle, which is another way that people can bring nature connection into their lives if they're totally not ready for going outside, or you want something to suggest they do to keep occupied. These online jigsaw puzzles seem to be incredibly popular, and especially the confidence comes from her feeling proud that she's taken a picture and it's created in a puzzle, and she can see that other people have played her puzzle. And she continues to come to the group, and she's much more like a volunteer now, buddying up with people, taking responsibilities, which is great to see. And just recently she started to volunteer at a local cat rescue centre, so she was ever so pleased to be able to tell us about that new plan, but she was still needing a lot of reassurance that this is a good thing to do, that it's going to be positive. And so without that community support, she may well have not undertaken that the next chapter of her volunteering at the cat rescue. So it just shows that people do need a long time to feel ready to move on, which can be really difficult when organisations are then reporting the outcomes that they are meeting with their patients. And then Mary's got a wonderful example about some accessible beekeeping sessions that she has discovered. So I'll just swap with Mary. So if Mary wants to tell us about that, that would be amazing.
Yes, well, yes, I heard about this. This is contact with nature, but coming from quite a different angle, really. I happened to attend a family funeral and meet one of my cousins that I haven't seen for a number of years, and discovered that he was doing the connection to nature thing, but in quite a different context. He lives in Cardiff, and Cardiff has a high population of ex-army or military veterans, and many of whom are suffering from PTSD, as you can imagine. And Cardiff City Football Club is actually providing an opportunity which they call Positive Pathways. And many of these ex-servicemen have been referred to Positive Pathways through social prescribing. But so the opportunities that are on offer are rather similar, actually, to Wild at Heart, but the portal, as it were, is the football club. So it's much more appropriate for the chaps that are being referred, and probably gives them, I think, a bit of sense of dignity. But my cousin is actually doing beekeeping sessions, and the hives are on a nearby beef farm, and so he is able to help people to learn about the process of keeping bees and producing honey and beeswax, and an extension of that is making beeswax candles and beeswax soap and all sorts of useful practical things. But he told me that actually when it comes down to it, the guys come along and they get dressed up in all the protective gear, but they're not really that interested in opening up the hive and looking what's inside, and most of them just want to talk. And he said to me that he said to me, well, they probably wouldn't want to talk to you, but they do want to talk to me, because he has an army background himself, and so he has the lived experience that that these people can relate to, and it's proving very, very popular. And there have been extensions that have come from this. Another thing that he does is making cider, and also he was explaining to me that he's really aiming to democratize all these activities and make them accessible, because he told me that in the beekeeping world there are quite a lot of elites, and especially say university professors who do beekeeping as a hobby, and they've all got big cameras and things to look at the close-up parts of the bee that you need to know about for bee health. But my cousin is producing resources to help people learn about the bees with photos that they can just take on their mobile phone. And also he's producing resources that tell you how to look after your bees, all in photos with very little text. So all in all, that's really quite a positive outfit that's happening there.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Mary. And then when you get the presentation, you can click on those links and find out some more about various things that are going on in that area.
Yeah.
So I had promised you another break, but it feels like we've only just come back. So perhaps I haven't planned that properly. But we're going to move the break to slightly later on, because otherwise I think we will run out of time. But I hope you admire Kaz's lino beaver, which we made in a session before Christmas. So we're going to spend some time now putting nature connection ideas into practice, and this will build on your skills that we looked at last week. Because if you personally don't have a strong connection to nature, it's very difficult to tell other people about that and share your passion if you're not really feeling it. But even if you don't feel particularly connected to nature at the moment, over time, by practicing a few of these activities, you can strengthen that connection. And a lot of people who are already doing this training with us today, just from what you've been sharing in the group, I can tell that you already have a real sense of feeling connected to the natural world. And that's where on the Padlet, you might be able to share your own experiences, which might then inspire other members of the group who may not be feeling as confident. So I think it's so important to share, what's going on, and that you never know what will resonate with another person. So last week we talked about noticing 3 good things in nature. And that's something that you can carry on doing. You can practice that as much as possible. And I wondered, to take it a stage further, is that as we're growing in confidence, it's often good to tell another person about that and to practice, so to get ready to practice sharing that idea with your patients. You might want to practice with your friends or your family or colleagues. So you can practice sharing the concept of noticing 3 good things over the next week. And then in the final session, it would be lovely to hear if you've tried that out with any of your colleagues or friends, and to find out what they think about it. And then often within Wild at Heart, we use nature in all of its wonderful forms to be the theme of the session, to bring us together, to use it really as a tool to get that social connections going. And within the session, we try and create as many micro moments of joy as possible. And that might seem, and by that I mean something like just something that might make somebody smile, and an opportunity for some playfulness, looking at something beautiful that you've seen and you sharing with others, and having compassion for others. So noticing if they need a drink, have they got the resources they need? Could you provide that glue stick or scissors, you know, and anticipate the other person's need? Because over time, the group becomes like a little community. So people begin to notice how they're feeling and look out for each other. And within our practice, you know, we as social prescribers, people might only meet your patient maybe once or twice. In some cases, other people work over a longer period of time with their patients, and that just is a difference to how people have been commissioned in their roles. But even if you're meeting a person once, we found it really a way to break the ice with that person, to be able to start a conversation, is to have some interesting things on your desk, or it might be, if you're visiting them, something that you might take with you, or so something like having a little jam jar posy of flowers, or greenery. This is all just greenery snippings from the garden, and a single early wallflower, and some heather. Things that are inexpensive, that are available. If you don't have a garden, you might find these things on a piece of common ground, and just popped in a jam jar, just as a talking point to brighten up your desk. Or it might be like somebody had a picture of a hare on your wall behind you. That would serve as a great talking point of, you know, something lovely that you can both share that moment of joy about. It might be having, I don't know if you can see that, a animal or something, a plant or something on your mug, that you might be able to have a conversation about. And or if something growing like a house plant or something, I don't know if you can see these are hyacinth bulbs, and I've just put a little model hedgehog in there. And Mary had a lovely story about one of our participants told her about she'd finally found some hyacinths in the shop to buy, and this was a micro moment of joy for her, because she was able to, I think she means like a little potted already growing hyacinth, that she's looking forward to tending over the next few weeks, to watch it flower and have that sensory, you know, the smell in her house. And she made a real point of telling Mary about it, and was so proud that she was able to do that.
She phoned Jenny. She actually phoned me
to say
last night, and she said, I've got some good news. And she said, are you ready for it? And I thought she was going to tell me that, I don't know, she was going on a big holiday or something. And she said, I've bought a hyacinth. And she was thrilled to bits about it, and really excited, because she's very visually impaired, but she could just see the beginning of the buds coming. She was very proud.
And you can find what's meaningful to you. It might be a pebble from a holiday, or a beach. It might be a piece of art that means something to you, that you can then share with another person. None of these things are inexpensive, or you know, it won't suit everybody. So you have to find what suits you, where you can just use that bit of nature to help that person feel a little bit more comfortable, to have a positive conversation, and maybe that might help you intersperse the more difficult conversations that you would have with your patient. Some people, if it's appropriate, might find it that they want to, say if you were visiting that person in their house, to bring them that posy of greenery snippings. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's the fact that somebody's thought about them and wanting to share something with them is where the care and the well-being happens. I'm just trying to share my screen again, and I've just got a couple of other ideas. Does anybody go out for walking meetings to when they meet their patient? So meeting outside in a local park. That might be something to try and to talk about in your team about, you know, putting the risk assessment together to check that people are safe. But that can be really interesting for people, because walking alongside somebody has a very different vibe to sitting in an office with somebody, and it might not be suitable for everybody, but for those people who you think might respond well to that, it's something to try. And you can, if you're working with a person who perhaps isn't quite ready for meeting other people in a green social prescribing group, but you want to suggest some sort of nature inspired activities they could maybe try at home, or you could, depending on your job role, try with them. You would, something like growing the marrow fat pea tops can be quite good, because they grow very quickly. So from one week to the next, you would see a great change. And the simple act of tending to a plant, looking after it, can be really interesting for people, and people can get a feel good about that. And then obviously they can eat it at the end as an extra addition to a salad or a soup, that sort of thing. But that's not the only, obviously, activity. We've got a whole load of seasonal nature-based activity fact sheets where they are most are suitable for trying out at home with very little equipment or resources that most people might have in their house, or can easily be sourced at little or no cost. So if we take this back to the nature connectedness, is about the positive relationships and experiences rather than the academic learning experiences. So if we're always trying to think about how can we bring a bit of positivity and playfulness into these meetings we have with our patients. Obviously we've got the work to do, we've got to do the assessments and everything, but some sort of bringing in some sort of element of the natural world can really help to just start those conversations off, where you may find that the patient is more wanting to talk more freely than they would otherwise. It's sort of, you build that rapport quicker. One moment. So if I just come back to the group again, does anybody try any of these things already? You know, naturally have something within their own practice that you might like to share with other people. So Izzy's put me. I'm not quite sure at what point you said me, but fantastic.
So we offer walk-in appointments to my patients, ones that have been inside a lot due to COVID and are struggling to get back out and having anxieties of getting out. And I also do weekly walks with a patient who has autism, and he finds that really helpful to get out and walk, because it's not as an intense environment when it's in surgery.
That's a really good thing to point out, because the whole environment around you has such a big influence on how that person feels. And of course, sometimes it's going to be much more appropriate to be in the office, but for those people who, and those meetings which can be outside, Izzy, you're doing a great job in doing that. And I think if we can build that into so it's not an unusual way to work. It can really change how you know, you could influence your colleagues and what they decide to do in their practice too. Does anyone else bring any nature into their role at the moment?
I would say in Doncaster we have home visits, so we're not in practice, so that it really it's nice to be able to go to somebody's home and we can talk about the things that they already like. So when you don't go personally, I don't get paperwork out. I just don't do it. It is a conversation, it's a chat. And so I might say, oh, do you know, I notice you're beautiful rhododendrons as I was walking down through your garden, you know, or you might see an oil painting that they've got on the wall, or it might be a tapestry, or it might be a house plant, or they get anything that's kind of sort of that's like that. Wallpaper, even things like wallpaper, you know, you can, I know myself, I'm choosing, as you can see behind me. I don't live like this all the time, honestly. So I'm choosing some wallpaper that's very much sort of outdoorsy, flowers, flora and fauna, that kind of thing, and those things bring it inside. So and they sometimes people forget to notice those things that are just around them all the time. So you can sort of just have a little conversation about that, and it's surprising what a different and what you can get from that conversation and get to know about that person as well.
Absolutely. I think you've really summed that up really well, Michelle, about, you know, using what that person is already connected to, what they already may feel positive about, as a stepping stone to widen the conversation into other parts of their life or their own relationship with nature, and talking about things which they like. You know, we all like talking about what we like because we're then passionate about it, so it puts that they may be in a more positive frame of mind to want to try something that you might be working together on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a good way to engage with people, because they've probably got nervous about you going.
Yeah.
And they've probably been running around, tidying around and thinking about that thing that's behind you that they've left out and forgot to put away, or, you know, all those things where it puts people at ease and they think, oh God, you know, they are human. They're not just a bureaucrat.
Absolutely.
You know?
We're all human, you know, social animals. We're all looking for that connection with other people. And nature is just one way to find that connection with another person. So, and I've just noticed that Peter is on the call. Something we're going to cover in next week is about building up local directories of what is available in your local area. And I remember, Peter, you telling me in the last summer about how that you've already been working on that. And I don't know if you wanted to say a little bit about what you've done that other teams might be able to copy your idea and you know, make their own version.
Can you hear me all right, Jenny?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, all it was when I came into the role 18 months ago, like the green social prescribing thing was something that I was interested in, because outdoor exercise and nature is something I've always had an interest in. So I was keen to try and map out what was already going on in Barnsley, the area that I work. And so that's what I did basically. I just, as part of the mapping for my specific area in Barnsley, I always also looked at Barnsley as a wider area and just put a bit of a directory together as to what was already going on, covering not just green spaces, but also activities that were taking place in different areas. Then I just shared that throughout my team. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that
spread the word basically.
That's fantastic, Peter. And it really, we've built that into the next session. But if you can, the whole idea about sharing the knowledge with the rest of your team is so important. And because it's, you know, once you make a directory, it's almost out of date as soon as you've done it. But as a team, to share your local knowledge of what's going on is so important. And for example, Wild at Heart, we would always say yes to any you know, social prescriber or link worker or person working in the community who wanted to come and visit the session while it was happening, so you can get a real idea of what that session's like. So then when you describe it to the people you're working with, you can really you know, assess whether they would be suitable for that placement, or what other support they might need put in place for them to get the most out of it. And I would have thought that most organisations running green social prescribing opportunities would also welcome people visiting and popping in, and then building up your directories like that. So it's not a thing you do on your own, it's a thing that you could do with the team, so then you can share the knowledge when you're working with patients. Does anyone else bring any nature or nature connection already into their role? No. Okay, so that's a great opportunity for over the next week to start thinking about how you might bring some nature connection into your role. And in the next session after next week, we'll do more about this. But if you wanted to reflect a little bit about how perhaps, you know, some small ideas you could try out maybe in this working week, or if you're not feeling as confident about that, you could perhaps add it onto the Padlet to share your idea of, how about this? Do you think this would be okay? And myself and Mary will have a look at it. But actually, what's probably more useful is the rest of your team and us as a group of sort of spread out workers across the area to have a look and add our ideas, and then we can learn together. Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen again, and we've just got a couple more slides, so we might not even need our break. We might finish just a few minutes early instead. Does that sound okay? Okay, so when we're, can everybody see that okay? Yeah. Lovely, thank you. So when we're talking about green social prescribing opportunities, there is obviously a massive range of what is available. It's different in every area. Things come and go as funding comes and goes, which often changes what's available at short notice. And there's things where, as we looked at the pyramid of personalised care, there's things which people need to be able to do at a self-directed level to explore the green spaces themselves, and perhaps join in with more public activities that the supportive environment isn't quite the focus of, right the way through to the community activities like the maybe things like park run. There might be things like community gardens where people can join in in a somewhat supported way, through to things like Wild at Heart, where, you know, the person is at the centre of what we're doing, and then the staff have the training available to work with all different people and what they bring to the session, and then right the way through to much more of a therapeutic relationship where people might do counselling one-to-one outside. And so it's so important. So when you're doing your research of collating the data, the information about all the different green social prescribing opportunities you might be referring people to, that you have a really good idea about where that organisation or that event sits in that spectrum of completely self-led experience that the person just has to be ready to join in with limited support, right the way through to something, you know, very specific, one-to-one, for example, the therapeutic counselling sessions. And there'll be a whole spectrum of in between, and that's where the the Institute of Outdoor Learning has really created a document which shares a statement of good practice, because they really recognise that to be able to confidently refer people into various different green social prescribing opportunities, you need to be utterly confident that the people who are running those activities have the competency and skills in place to be able to support the people you're recommending go to the session. And what I would encourage you to do is to, when I send around these slides, click on the link and have a look at this document, because you can then see how they've laid out some of the potential risks of people who, if you are sending a person and their needs are higher than what the organisation can meet, the patients at risk of having a poor experience, not having the support they need, and potentially an unsafe experience. And likewise, the practitioners, they feel out of their comfort zone, out of their depth in respect to their training, and therefore they may not be able to keep on running the sessions as they are. So it's about it really clearly outlines how, by having these clear boundaries of people working within their competencies, both the patients and the workers, the volunteers, all feel well supported, and you get safe, well-run activities. And so people have a very clear expectations about what that service can provide for each patient. So next week, we're going to focus on play and playful moments as adults, and bringing that into nature connection, because often you can find a real connection to nature from feeling like you are relaxed enough and open enough to have a playful moment in the natural world. We're going to have a look at how you might develop your own nature connection or nature connectedness into your own practice. So this week, between now and next Wednesday, you might like to get a few clippings from the garden and pop them in a jam jar. You might like to just try and find a couple of pictures which mean something to you that you can put on your wall. And lots of the things we've talked about earlier on in the session, like if you were visiting someone at home, using those the natural elements within the house, or what you can see from their window, to build some rapport with that patient, and just see how that feels. Obviously, if that's appropriate, do it. If it's not appropriate, try it a different time. You know your role best. And then we'll be looking a bit more about mapping existing provision of green prescribing opportunities in your specific area. And we're going to look about if you are interested to follow on from these trainings, to learn more about nature connectedness. There is the online course that's run through Derby University, which is free to attend. It's about 20 hours of study, so it will take a few weeks to complete at most people. And then I can't play it now because the sound quality isn't great, but when you come to receive these slides, if you want to click on that link, it's a wonderful poem read by Charles Dance, and I think there's a few other sort of quite famous actors within it, and it's a love, well, it's called a love song, so it's a love song about the natural world, which you might find enjoyable, and you might want to share with other people. It's about creating that love for nature that we can, because if we don't love and understand nature, we won't feel protective of it and make those positive choices. So you can have a look at that. And then I was talking last week about how obviously these sessions are online, which totally is the opposite of nature connection, isn't it? you know, we spend so long staring at screens that it would have been absolutely wonderful to be able to do these sessions face to face in a natural environment and have a much more practical experience where it's not just me talking, we would be doing and learning as we do. And I've put forward to the ICS that perhaps we could do some of these, you know, practical face-to-face meetup, and perhaps in each ICS, in each area of the ICS in the future. And I'm just waiting to hear what they think of that. But this was commissioned when COVID was, we were very unsure how COVID was going to affect, you know, long-term being able to meet up. So thank you so much. Yeah, I can for joining in with these sessions, and we've got some time now for any questions. And I will we've had a request to post the song, so let me do that. So if you want to think of any questions that you'd like to share, do shout them out, or any feedback of these sessions you want to share together, and I will find the link to the song, and then you can, when we finish, you can load it up on your browser, and then you can play it. So I'm struggled to do two things at once, so I will get you the song. Here we go. So, okay, so that didn't work in the way I wanted. Okay, I will. Does anyone have any questions or feedback that perhaps Mary could take the first couple of questions while I find you the link?
One useful bit of feedback we had last week, Jenny, was about providing these training sessions actually out in nature, and of course that is what we would ideally love to do. So obviously these sessions were set up when we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID, so they'd be much easier, and it'd be a lot easier to all share our ideas if we were sitting together or we were outside somewhere. So we are hoping, if we can, to put on some training sessions subsequently, actually out in nature. So Michelle, you have a question or some feedback?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a silly question. I was just wondering, just more practical stuff, whether the handouts could have, I've got to stop my song because it's playing in the background. I'll turn that off. Now it's off. Yeah. Whether, you know, is there going to be a handout about how we can engage people more with kind of green prescribing and social prescribing in general? Like, you know, just because I don't work as a social prescriber, but I would like to get people I work with more involved. So I'm just not 100% sure how to do that. And that's probably my lack of knowledge, or maybe I've missed it on these presentations when I'm trying to work at the same time a bit. So
do you mean information about what, like a leaflet or a handout about what
something like that
prescribing is?
Yeah, and how we can engage with it, sort of thing. And you know, something, so just something small, like, yeah.
So there, I can definitely put that forward and see what there is out there. There is the IWAN on the Padlet. I've shared the IWAN, their findings from the recommendations from their research project. So that is the urban, so wellness through urban nature project, and that has some really clear recommendations for both like healthcare practitioners, about people who are in charge of commissioning, people are in charge of planning and development. So it doesn't necessarily describe what green social prescribing is, but it's also how they can plan for the future to ensure that our cities are more are carefully planned for nature and well-being. But
it was just about what opportunities were available locally as well, because I know that your Wild at Heart groups run, and I wondered if you had any space in any of those, for example. So it's just whether that kind of information.
And so that's where like lots of the different organisations will have space at different times, and I think what's really important is that it's a two-way process. So all the different organisations are contacting the social prescribing teams and letting them know, yes, we've got space, no, we haven't got space for a couple of months. So then you're not promising something to a patient that can't happen quickly. But I really hope that over this pilot of, you know, this green prescribing pilot, that gets you know, some really clear networking and ways of working gets established where that becomes easier.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Peter, I think you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to fill some of the space, but you put the YouTube link on now anyway, but I was just going to back up with what you said earlier, Jenny. I don't think green social prescribing always sits with all social prescribing link work, because, you know, it does with some more than it does others. And I think it's really important moving forward as part of this test and learn project that those that do, you know, resonate with it more, and it fits in more with who they are, that they, you know, like champion it for the teams, help push it.
That's a really good idea, and I'm sure I can take that back to the ICS about how perhaps, you know, within teams, you know, we can share some of the good stuff that's happening, because I also think, like, if you see your colleagues doing something and being successful at it, it might, even if they're not ultra keen about nature connection, they might also want to, you know, serve their patients in the best way and think about green options for them, and at least begin to have those conversations. And I really hope that we'll be able to expand this training and do it for other people, because there's hundreds of people who could be included in the role of as a social prescriber or link worker or community worker who have that opportunity to influence people. Does anyone else have any points to share? Anything they wanted me to include for next week, or anything that you feel hasn't been said? Okay, so over the next few weeks, the next few days until next week, if you want to practice your own elements of building your own connection to nature, so that might be you're noticing your 3 good things, you might be taking your lunch outside and seeing what's going on, you might try out a walking meeting with a colleague. There's lots of different options and you can find what suits you. You might want to teach a colleague or a friend about the 3 good things and share that, so you build a bit of confidence. And then when we log off, don't forget to fill out the council survey that Yvonne shared earlier. So that's in the chat. So before I close the meeting, make sure you've got that link to follow. And then the other thing is, just for a rousing, nice way to finish, you could click on the YouTube link and watch the video and listen to the words of the poem. And hopefully, you know, let me know how that feels. The Padlet's there for you to add any information, and I'll be checking that throughout the week. So do feel free to add anything you would like. And I will send these slides round later on, I think this afternoon, to you all, so then you can reflect on the slides in the coming days. Okay, does that sound okay for everybody? Great, lovely. Okay, so I'll just give you a few minutes just to copy the links in the chat, but I will say goodbye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Jenny.
Bye. See you soon. Have a good week, everybody. Oh, someone's playing the poem.
I've heard talk of a quiet violence waiting at the water's edge.
Sorry, I thought I'd already left.
That's all right. See you soon, Fiona. Have a good afternoon.
Hi, Fiona.